Republican Party. At the end of the line, it's all run by the banks and the financial institutions. They run the politics in America. And that's how they've kept the country going all these years. There's nothing wrong with that. But they lead us to believe there's a huge difference between the two parties, when in fact, since 1994, I truly yours, Michael Savage, have been saying that we have a Democrat Party or a Republican Party. It's a one-party system playing three-card Monte. The only change has been Donald Trump in that two-party system and three-card Monte. So what I'm saying is this establishment, the Goldman Sachs, great company, by the way, the investment banks, the Wall Street banks that run America and run the world, they're never going to let this tuna fish stained bum from Union Square on a soapbox get to the finish line. Now, it's an ominous statement in some ways, but just as the power structure prevented him from winning last time and gave it to Hillary instead, they're going to do it again. And if you watch movies, as I do, I mean, you don't have to be a genius to know what I'm saying. You don't have to be a genius to put two and two together. If he becomes a real threat, I suggest you watch The Irishman or The Godfather. I'll be right back.
The Savage Nation. It's savage, uncut, unfiltered, and raw.
Well, that about wraps up hour number one, and I hope you've enjoyed my history of socialism in reference to Bernie the Bolshevik taking New Hampshire. And we'll talk more about communism, why I believe we need HUAC to be returned to the United States of America during Donald Trump's second administration. I hope that quote goes out far and wide. Crazy Michael Savage says HUAC should be brought back during Trump's second term. God, make my day. Let people start talking about what the House of Un-American Activities Committee was and how right they were, because I'm going to do it in the next hour and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow.
The Westwood One Podcast Network. Fans of the spoken word, welcome. This is a podcast. Greetings, pod recipients. You are entering the Savage Nation. Read the book. See the movie. Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, the world's most exciting podcast, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, New York Times best-selling author and National Radio Hall of Fame inductee, Michael Savage.
Calling the House Un-American Activities Committee to order, Chairman J. Parnell Thomas of New Jersey opens an inquiry into possible communist penetration of the Hollywood film industry. The committee is seeking to determine if Red Party members have reached the screen with subversive propaganda. Mr. Thomas takes an impartial stand in his opening talk.
I want to emphasize at the outset of these hearings that the fact that the Committee on Un-American Activities is investigating alleged communist influence and infiltration in the moving picture industry must not be considered or interpreted as an attack on the industry itself. Nor should our investigation be interpreted as an attack on the majority of persons associated with this great industry. I have every confidence that the vast majority of movie workers are patriotic and loyal Americans.
A long list of prominent motion picture witnesses appear before the committee. Speaking for the films, Eric Johnston, president of the Motion Picture Association, talks frankly concerning the attitude of the producers.
We're accused of having communists and communist sympathizers in our employ. Undoubtedly, there are such persons in Hollywood, as you will find elsewhere in America. But we neither shield nor defend them. We want them exposed. We're not responsible for the political or economic ideas of any individual, but we are responsible for what goes on the screen. We guard that with great care. If communists have attempted to inject their propaganda into the motion picture, they have failed miserably. We will never permit them to succeed.
Well, that was then, this is now. That was 1947. The Reds have succeeded beyond their wildest imagination. All of Hollywood is given towards Marxism in one way or another, socialism, anarchism. Most of them are hardcore Trotskyites and don't even know it. They're stooges, they're puppets, they're fools, they're tools. Welcome to the savage nation. And we're talking about the victory of the naked Bolshevik in the primary in New Hampshire. Bernie the Bolshevik takes New Hampshire. I call it Hampshire for a good reason. Now you say, it's not like that, and he's not really a communist. He's just a Democrat socialist, and he's not that frightening. That's because you don't know the history of communism. You don't want to spend the time to study the differentials between so-called democratic socialism and hardcore Trotskyism. But you can study it. In the last hour, I gave a wonderful monologue on the subject and traced the lineage and history of Bernie Sanders all the way back to the beginning of the utopian communities in the early 19th century, such as the Shakers, and brought you all the way up to Barack Obama, who was backed by the Democratic Socialists of America in '08, and Bernie Sanders, who has been credited with reviving the American socialist movement by bringing it into the mainstream public view for the 2020 United States presidential election. If you care to comment on these subjects, the phone number is 855-400-7282. Is that my number? Yeah, 855-400-SAVAGE. And I'll take my first call right now out of Las Vegas. Michael, welcome to the program. What's your topic, please?
I detect they're getting nervous. Blankfein, Chris Matthews, Bloomberg, they gotta think that this guy might actually have a chance of winning with this army of millennials, that can't be deterred.
Yes, that's right. Why do you think I'm doing the show? Because I don't dismiss this tuna fish stained bum.
No, he's very dangerous. He is a neo-Bolshevik. And this mob, this AOC millennial mob, they're like a mob of wild animals. They cannot.
Yeah, they are the people who would put you and I into a work camp as sure as I'm sitting here. I've studied the Khmer Rouge. I have studied the Red Brigades. I know who they are. They are vicious. They have no soul. They have no heart. All they have is a desire to take from others out of sheer jealousy and racism.
And this generation is very easily mobilized by social media.
Yes, and this generation is amoral. It's an amoral generation that is capable of the worst that humanity has ever seen.
Well, to paraphrase James Baldwin, these lefties have cast their bread upon the waters for 60 years, and now it is returning to them poison.
What you're saying is the leaders, the Democratic leaders, are suddenly panicking over what they have been playing with because, you sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind. There's another way to put it. They thought it was a game they were playing, the Chris Matthews types. They're scared. I saw Wolf Blitzer last night and that other clown on the stage with him, Jake Tapper. I saw they were almost terrified of what they had created. They never thought this Frankenstein, who they were feeding, would ever grow into the full-blown monster that has emerged last night. But they've seen nothing yet, Michael. I think you agree with me. Because behind the old seltzer man is a vicious group of millennials who are fundamentally racists and amoral. Thank you for the call. James in San Jose, welcome to the Savage Nation. Topic, please.
Yes, Dr. Savage. I'm talking about Bernie Sanders, and I'm a 20-year-old guy. And he's not selling with a lot of the guys I know down here. I'm one of those millennials that you're from.
Yeah, but you're a guy. You sound like you actually know what's going on. You know that most of the people around you don't know what's going on. Wouldn't that be a fair assessment?
Oh, 100%, Dr. Savage. I go to community college out here, and it's so sad. I listen to people, and they're talking about how white people are evil and how we don't deserve to be around them, and it's awful.
Right. Now, this has come from the communist movement. It's been promoted by Bernie Sanders and occasional Cortex. It is fostered by the hatred within the black community towards white people, and it is going to metastasize into a full-blown racial war if they are not stopped. And the only target that is permitted to be picked on is the white heterosexual male. You, my friend, are the new target in America. You are the new target in America, and you know it. So you may think that it's not resonating, but you're just telling me it is in a way, aren't you?
Yes, sir. It's very sad.
I'm sure that your teachers and professors agree with these communists, don't they?
Oh, 100%. I remember in my English class last semester, one of the girls got up and she was talking about, we were reading a book, Black Like Me. I don't know if you've heard of it, Dr. Savage, but we were reading the book, and they were talking about how racist the white people were back about 100 years ago or so, and they were comparing it to now as if nothing's changed.
No, who said nothing's changed?
The professor made it sound like nothing had changed at all.
Well, the professor is a low-life, low-ticket bum. That's why he's teaching. There's an old saying, those who can do and those who can't teach. And you usually get that type in the community colleges. They're all jealous losers. And what they do is promote hatred. And now they can no longer pick on anyone except the white heterosexual Christian male. And I'm telling you, as I sit here, you have to speak out and you have to stand up no matter what it costs you. Because I wouldn't say put it on yourself. Just be aware and be very sensitive to this raging racism that's raging underneath the surface, especially in the community colleges. And unfortunately, it doesn't limit itself to the community colleges. As I said to you, it's time to bring back UAC. I would offer to work for Donald Trump for $1 after he wins in 2020 to head up the new UAC committee, no matter what it may cost me. No matter what target it makes of me. Maybe that's what the woman meant in the hospital, the black woman. I'm trying to think what she meant now that I'm actually drifting into this subject. Give me a second to think about this. I'm in the hospital, and a black woman comes up to me. I told you this before. She was not a nurse. She was at the front desk in the ER room, and she came back to ask me about some paperwork. And we started to talk, and she asked me what I do, and I told her. She didn't know who I was in radio. She listened very intently. I looked very deeply into her eyes. She looked into my eyes, and I said to her, "Where are you from?" "In Africa." I said, "Are you from Western Africa?" And she said, "No, I'm from Northern Africa, more like in Egypt." I think she was saying the Sudan. I'm not sure. And I knew immediately what she was saying, and she looked at me very carefully. And she said, "You've got nothing to worry about. Your work on this earth is not finished." Now, this was not a doctor. This was not a nurse. This was a spirit who either sought or was given a job in a hospital and has a kind heart and a very deep insight into people and patients. And she greatly encouraged me to come back from the brink and continue what I had been doing. And every day I wake up and I say, what did that woman mean? What did she mean, Michael Savage, your work is not finished yet? What am I actually going to do other than what I am doing? Well, I'm doing a daily radio show. I'll probably do one more book. I know you're saying you've said that before. All right, I've said it before. I may do one more book. And that's not enough. That's not enough. What if my fate is to run UAC for Donald Trump in 2020? Now, don't suggest it to anyone because it could weaken his chances in some ways, not destroy it all. But I don't want him associated with that thought. It's me talking, not him. I never discussed this with him. I don't even know if he'd be receptive to it. My suggestion is the liberals around them would never permit this to happen. But that doesn't mean that I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's a fabulous idea, and I think it's long overdue that the House of Un-American Activities Committee has not been dusted off and revised, because if you look at Hollywood, for example, and look at these people and what kind of filth they have been producing, if you look at the sewer pipe that is now known as Hollywood, where not one movie is made, well, I wouldn't say not one, the 90th percentile are filled with violence and perversion and pornography. If that's not an example of subversion, I'd like to know what is. Now, combine that with the wholesale selling of marijuana as wholesome, where a good percentage of the youth generation is stoned out of their minds most of the time, and you have a toxic cocktail that is being led by occasional Cortex and her band of racist robots.
The Savage Nation. It's Savage on Demand.
We can't expect the American people to jump from capitalism to communism